Welcome to the show, and our Miami Hurricanes got the much needed bounce back victory. The bounce back victory we needed and the bounce back victory we expected to get against the Stanford Cardinals at home. We beat them 42-7, but that game was a total tale of two halves. It was a completely different story in each half. The Miami Hurricanes offense in the first half was putrid. It was horrible. It was terrible. Nothing to be proud of against the Stanford Cardinals. But in the second half, they put up 35 points, and it was amazing. It was completely what we saw early on in the season. Pounding the rock down the middle, running between our tackles, getting that push from the O-line, and then making little small plays that we needed Carson Beck to make in order to keep the running game flowing and keep the defense on their toes. But, as I said, the first half, awful. That first half had me ready to fire Cristobal, fire Dawson, and sit Carson Beck for Emory Williams. That's how bad that first half was on offense. I mean, they came out, went down the field, missed the field goal. That was bound to happen. You knew Carter Davis, it bound to happen on a missed field goal. It was bound to happen. 50-yard field goal, went right, left, and then Stanford answered with a touchdown punt. Then we get the ball back, turnover on downs, before we finally get our first touchdown, our first score of the game before halftime. It was our last possession before the half that the Hurricanes could finally tie it against the Stanford Cardinals, who suck. All right? First game of the season, they lost to Hawaii. They beat FSU. FSU's not good. Other than that, they stink. All right, they stink. Their quarterback only had 50 yards passing. Their guys up front, they're not built in the trenches like we are. Their DBs can't compare to our wide receiver skill. There was no reason for this offense to come out so conservative and so stagnant. Stagnant it was. The run game wasn't working. CJ Daniels dropping balls. Carson Beck not hitting receivers. It was awful. But thankfully, we put together a methodical 15-play, 71-yard drive to tie in our last possession before the half. Going into half, it was 7-7. But the defense, just like the first half, came out and played and dominated in the second half. Corey Heatherman saved us this game. He saved us in the first half. Our offense did come out in the second half. But our defense continued to play well throughout the whole game. They played with their ESV, their excitement, their swarming, and their violence. Corey Heatherman is that dude. You know, he might be a head coach somewhere else after this season. Because the way this defense played, it kept our heads in the game. It allowed us to not have to force the ball downfield with Carson Beck like we had to do against Louisville. You know, if we were go down 2 scores, I can only imagine Carson Beck slinging that ball downfield and just putting us in a deeper hole because he can't hit the receivers downfield. But luckily, the defense got their stops, only allowed that touchdown in Stanford's first possession, first drive of the game. And from there out, complete dominance, complete shutout by by the Miami Hurricanes defense and Ruben Bain. Honestly, and I was critical of the defense last week because I feel like that D-line, truthfully, has not been living up to the expectations, has not been living up to how they were playing against the Gators, how they were playing against Notre Dame, and they needed to be better. And they stepped up this week. That was that defense I remember from the first couple games of the season. Right there. Ruben Bain dominant. Wesley was saying with the big pick that really changed the game, really put it away for the Miami Hurricanes. But coming out of halftime, defense got a stop, touchdown, 40-yard drive, 6-play, 40-yard drive. Mark Fletcher ran that thing right up the middle for a touchdown. Then we got another stop. Then it was a turnover on downs because we can't get a 4th and 1 with our O-line not pushing it. Well, on that 4th and 1, I'm going to be honest. There were some issues where I'm watching TV and I'm like, Mark Fletcher, you're running the wrong way. You're running between the wrong side where you're running the wrong tackles. I don't know if that's a read on him or he's told to run in that direction. But like if you were to bounce it out to the left side instead of running it out to the right side where Brockemeyer absolutely got pushed to that side and got dominated and ran out to the left side, he would have had the first down and many more. And there was other instances. There was another run where I'm like, you could have had a touchdown if you just ran it and bounced it to the left side instead of running to the right side where there's a complete mosh of people. But hey, it worked. He was amazing this game. 106 yards, 3 touchdowns, 23 carries. He was the star of the offense. But after that turnover on downs, interception, Wesley Saint sets us right there on the 3-yard line. We were able to get a touchdown, and then a 7-21. And that's what really flipped the game on its head. Before we had another pick by Xavier Lucas that led to another touchdown. And from there, it was complete domination in the third quarter, complete domination in the fourth quarter. The Miami Hurricanes were just able to capitalize and build off of their awesome defense, and their offense finally got going. The run game finally got going. You know, as you keep pounding that rock and you hit the checkdowns and you hit the short play, the short passing plays, eventually the run game is going to get it started. The run game is going to get flowing, and that's what the Miami Hurricanes are thrive off of. Their old line pushing, the run game going. And that's what they thrived off of in the second half. Now, Malachi Toney, I knew he was going to get started on those punt returns. It was bound to happen. Malachi Toney got 2 amazing punt returns this game, where he set Miami up in great field position, which also helped our offense. But it was really just Mark Fletcher. It was Mark Fletcher pounding the rock up the middle. 4.5 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, 106 yards. Look, his longest run was 16 yards. It wasn't like he was getting explosive plays running the ball. But it worked. Running up the middle worked because of that outstanding offensive line and the skill difference between our offensive line and their defensive line. You know, the run game worked and led us to victory. Something we weren't able to get going last week is something we were able to get going this week, and you see what happens. We dominate. And Carson Beck doesn't have to try to force the ball downfield when he just has to hit the dinks and the dunks. He just has to hit Malachi Toney on some out routes. Malachi Toney for 8-10 yards. You know, Tony Johnson was big this game. Big breakout game, 3 receptions, 69 yards. Then Malachi Toney right behind him for 5 receptions, 52. CJ Daniels had a touchdown. He only had 8 yards, though. Keelan Marion had some drops. I was like, where's JoJo Trader? Where's JoJo Trader? Keelan Marion. Get JoJo Trader in some passing plays. Because JoJo Trader did have a decent amount of snaps. I saw him out on the field, but most of the time it was just run plays. He was out there to block. He wasn't blocking his ass off. You could tell he's motivated. He wants to get some extended playing time. Wants to get into the field to make those big plays, to finally get into some damn passing concepts that are drawn up for him. But other than that, he was not. He was still locked up in Cristobal prison. Which, you know, I don't know. We saw what he did in the bowl game against Iowa State. He's been hurt. Jordan Lyles finally back, and he's got going with that long 17-yard run for a touchdown. That's good to get him going. He's our explosive running back. You know, it would be nice to get him going so we can have that threat of Lyle and Fletcher, Power, Sonic and Knuckles, Montgomery and Gibbs. That type of run game going. But, you know, JoJo Trader's still not seeing... I can't say he's not seeing playing time. He's seeing playing time. He's getting playing time. But most of it's run. Most of it's run blocking. I want to see him get the targets. I want to see him get 2-3 targets at least. But hey, can't complain. Canes win by 35 points in a tale of 2 halves. A dominant second half, a very, very slow offensive first half, but defense consistent throughout. And I just listened to Cristobal's post game, and he was not pleased by the first half. Obviously, no one's going to be pleased by the first half that offense put up. And whether it's a Dawson issue or Cristobal wanting to completely always pound the rock, which I think it is, because like we saw last year, Dawson probably wants to sling the ball. He wants to sling the ball a little bit more. But this worked. It worked in the second half. First half, you cannot do this. You cannot do this against teams like we play next week, SMU, Pittsburgh. You can't. Stanford is a bottom-of-the-barrel ACC team. And they were able to hold your offense to 7 in one half. The offense only being able to score on the last possession of the half. That's bad. That's bad. And while SMU didn't look good this week, they lost to Wake Forest. You still know their offense is there. You still know Kevin Jennings is there. Rhett Lashley is the dude. You know? So you cannot get off to the slow start. And I hope, you know, the first half looked like an extension of the offense in the Louisville game. And I hope that second half They got far, far away from that Louisville game. They got far, far away from that second half against that fourth quarter against FSU and that second half against FSU. In this, we're back to playing dominant, pound the rock football. And I do like to see mix in Beck hit some big plays down the field, but that did not need to happen this game. This game was all about dominating, and I expect Beck to need to make big plays down the field against SMU. I expect him to need to make big plays down the field against Syracuse or Pittsburgh or Virginia Tech coming up. But this case, he didn't need to. He didn't need to. But and we need him to know that he's gonna need to, and it might need to happen next week, because this offense cannot try to run such basic, predictable offense against SMU, and then let their offense get going, and they're just a better team in general. So this cannot happen. But it can happen against Stanford, and it can happen, and we can finally get it going. We have enough time to finally get it going, and you see what happens when we finally get it going. So Stanford Cardinals, bad team. Bad ACC team, one of the worst ACC teams, and Miami dominated them. It wasn't the domination through all 4 quarters, but it was a domination on offense of 2 and the defense of all 4. Beat them by 35. At least you can say you beat Stanford by 35, and it was not a close game, because if it was a close game, no matter if we won, especially if we lost, I would have been out here firing Cristobal, I would have been out here firing Dawson, I would have been out here benching Beck, making him refund that $3 million, putting him on fraud check, just giving up on this team. But they didn't. They proved me wrong. I held my words in. I allowed them time to prove me wrong, in which they did. Canes win 42-7. How many times am I going to say that before I wrap up this video? I don't know, because I'm worried about such a slow start. But hey, the second half needs to be carried over into the following games, to the next 5 games we have. That's what the second half needs to be. Just like that second half against Louisville was carried over into this first half of this game against Stanford, that second half against Stanford needs to be carried over for the rest of the season, because we control our own destiny. And today, we did not get any help from unranked teams or even ranked teams in beating top-ranked teams. Ole Miss won against OU. Georgia Tech dominated Syracuse. IU won. UVA won in a close one against UNC. That would have been a clutch loss for the Canes, because UVA we don't play, and they're undefeated in ACC play, despite losing to NC State. Despite losing to NC State, they're somehow still undefeated in ACC play, because that was magically not an ACC game. Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, both undefeated ACC teams that we don't play. One, Louisville, one. So we didn't get much help, whether it was in the ranking, considering CFB rankings-wise or ACC rankings-wise, but we still control our own destiny. We get into the playoffs if we win out. Simple as that. And that's what we needed to know. That's what we need to do. We're 1 down. Got 5 more to go. And we need to win all 5 to get into the CFB. Canes win 42-7. Great second half. Bad first half. But it's a win, and it's a dominant one. On to the next.